Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Cade Museum for this February 23rd meeting of the Rotary Club of Gainesville. Welcome to those of you watching online as well. My name is Tom Collette, your Sergeant at Arms. If you're watching online after the fact on YouTube, we ask that you please register your participation by sending us an email, info@rotarygainesville.org. We begin our meeting today, as we always do, with song and pledge. Please welcome now to the podium, hopefully without a joke today, Pete Enwall.
Thank you, Tom. Let's give Tom a big hand. He does a great job up here and runs everything. Let's clap for him. It's become very fashionable for people of a certain age to share with everyone that when they got their shots. And so I would like to share that I got my second shot this morning. My arm begins to hurt a little bit. And the funny thing is that I got the shot in this arm. So just to let you know, my grandson was coming up with a birthday and he asked for an Arnold Schwarzenegger doll to play with. So I went to the toy store, or I went to Target actually. And I asked the guy, I couldn't find it. I asked the guy, where are the Arnold Schwarzenegger toys? He said, I'll be back. I'll be back. We're going to sing God Bless America. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Join me in pledging allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pete. Please remain standing for our invocation, today offered by Catherine Price via Zoom. Catherine, it's all yours.
Good morning, everyone, and we look forward to joining you in person soon. But let me invite you to bow your heads and pray with me this morning. Thank you, God, for this beautiful day, for the gift of friendship and community that we experience as a part of Rotary. As we approach the year marker of this pandemic, we know it has shaped us and our world in ways beyond our immediate comprehension. We pray as we move forward, you will enable us to see with new perspective. Let those of us who have enough to eat during this time not forget those who don't. And neither let us forget that in our own community are children who never have enough to eat. Let those of us with homes and dry places to sleep remember those all over the world who lack adequate housing. And for those who have to work from home, remind us to be grateful that we have a home from which to work, and that we are working when there are those, for whatever reason, cannot. May all that we have experienced in this past year challenge our limited perspective, buoy our compassion, and increase our capacity for resilience as we seek to serve you and reflect your mercy and justice in our local, national, and global community. Amen.
Thank you very much, Catherine. If you are a member with a guest, please, you and your guest, stay upright, standing for us. If you're a visiting Rotarian, stand up for us. Is Don here today? Don Bugos? There he is. Didn't recognize him with his mask.
We'll have a formal introduction shortly, but I have the honor here joining us at the table, Jacob and his wife, Linda. as our speaker today and give him a warm welcome. We look forward to the word ahead. Thank you.
One more right up front.
Fellow Rotarians, I'd like to introduce my partner and good friend who is interested in joining us, Dalton Baker. Dalton Baker.
Welcome to both of you, all three of you. Now we have a few announcements. We have two, actually, both via Zoom. We'll start with Nancy Hart. Nancy.
Hey, Tom, we have a guest online. Bill Stasowitz is going to introduce her.
Okay, Bill, go right ahead.
Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, so I did this vaccine sign up on Sunday, and I met Dahlia. And Dahlia is a beautiful flower with amazing variety. It's a favorite of Dr. Hart. And Dr. Hart's, the Dahlia is also a swimmer, a biker, a 22-year-old pre-med student from UF, born and raised in Jacksonville. And she joined me, and it's really glad she did because she could operate that smartphone the way it's supposed to be operated. And she did a wonderful job talking to all the old folks that we met in East Gainesville. And Dahlia was so impressed with Rotary, she wanted to join us, and she's on Zoom today.
Up next, then, we have Nancy Hart via Zoom. Nancy, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. We had an amazing event on Sunday. It was planned and executed mostly by TJ Pache, who deserves all the credit. I just went along to be the doctor on the team, and we had great turnout by Rotarians, including Bill and Dahlia, as already mentioned. We had Greg Young, Craig Carter, Margaret Combs, Courtney Evans, a Rotaractor, Michaela Gibbs, and Jim Skiles from the Downtown Club. And there were in all 40 people walking the neighborhood. And TJ got us 500 addresses of African-American people in East Gainesville who were over 65. And we knocked on almost all 500 doors and actually spoke to 134 different households. And here's the amazing thing. Even TJ didn't know this till I tumbled the numbers. 55% of the people we contacted had either had a vaccine or an appointment for a vaccine, which I think is remarkable. It's probably the best in Florida. And if you add the people who are on a waiting list, 67% of people were aware, willing, and just waiting for the shot to hit their arms. There were about between 30 and 40 people who wanted or needed help actually getting onto a waiting list. And TJ and I are taking care of those people one by one. And I may be going back to you, Naomi Williams, and Brendan shortly, who didn't come because they haven't had their shots yet, but are super interested in helping. We just need to make a few phone calls and get them signed up on the Alachua County website. So I just want to thank all Rotarians who care about what's going on in East Gainesville. And there are a lot of people in town reaching out to East Gainesville. We did learn about other gaps that we're going to address. TJ and I have plans to go back to other neighborhoods that we didn't reach. And also, for example, the 300 building and the 100 building where people who are disabled live. And so we're not done, but I think we were wildly successful. And I just want to thank everyone who came out.
One more announcement, and that is from, I think, a weekly presenter here in this spot, TJ Pache.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, everybody. On this coming Saturday, the 27th, we're going to be doing a tour of Santa Fe College's new Blunt campus, the construction that's going on there. I really think, and a lot of folks agree, that this is going to be something that in many ways revitalizes that space downtown. So I really encourage you, if you have the time, at 9 on Saturday morning, come spend an hour and a half with us, come learn about what Santa Fe is doing, and come see just how awesome of a space that's going to become. If you have any questions, please send me an email. You got an email from me about this yesterday, so just go ahead and register if you'd like to be there. And as always, if you have any ideas for future service projects or fun and fellowship tours or activities, please let me know and we can get something going. Thank you, everybody.
Up next, moving on in our meeting, it's time to hear from your president. Please welcome to the podium, Matthew Brady.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Tom. Wow, we've got a big crowd today, Jacob. So you only like the second or third live presenter since August, and you brought the big crowd. So thank you. Look forward to it. And thank you again, TJ and Nancy, for great work Saturday, and all the Rotarians that joined with other people in the community to reach a need and get out and about and continue to do great works in this community. So thank y'all very much. And so David Nicholson told me something before the meeting, that he is a huge fan of mystery novels, and he has boxes and boxes that he would love to share. So if anyone would like to share in those mystery novels, please reach out to David, and he'll help you out in that area. So thank you. All right. I, having the honor to hand off to Jenny Van Hart to introduce the speaker, and I'll get to sit back and enjoy with each and every one of you. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just a quick notice before I introduce our speaker. Thank you to everyone who have signed up or donated gift baskets for the attendance incentive. We've had a spectacular response, and Kelly Costomo was overwhelmed when I delivered a trunk load of baskets and goodies to her location last week. And I think I'm doing another trip this week. So thank you. We can still do with more. So now to our speaker. Dr. Jacob Atem is the co-founder and CEO of the Southern Sudan Healthcare Organization, a nonprofit that provides medical facilities, supplies, and healthcare education to the people of South Sudan. At the age of 6, Jacob traveled over 2,000 miles to escape a brutal civil war in South Sudan that claimed his family. For nearly a decade, he lived in an overcrowded Kenyan refugee camp where hunger and disease were daily struggles. Now recognized as a lost boy of the Sudan, Jacob is a US citizen and has dedicated to his life to healthcare education and medical service. Adhering to the Southern Sudan Healthcare Organization's mission, which focuses on natives helping natives, Jacob advocates for displaced persons around the world. Under his leadership, his healthcare organization aims to inspire hope and improve the quality of life for the lost. It is my pleasure to introduce to you today our speaker, Dr. Jacob Atem.
Well, thank you, Jenny, and it's good to see a human being. Good thing we are practicing social distancing and we are wearing our masks, so that gives us a peace of mind. Thank you, President Matthew. And it's always been my dream to speak to Rotary Club in Gainesville when I was a student here. But, you know, it never happened. I have a very good friend and colleague of mine here who attended, many of them. We have Tony Barr here, we have Richard Allen, but there's always time and space. So here I am. I'm very excited to be here. I remember when I contacted Jenny, it was a grant that I wanted to do cultivation, vegetable seed in South Sudan. And then I get to share my vision. And then I have a friend of mine, a common friend between Jenny and I, John Spence, who later introduced me, and it's amazing community. I went to UF and went for about a year and came back. And before I go to my speech, I want to introduce my better half, my wife, Linda. I'm glad she joined us today. I told her we can present together, and she said, "You present, but be on time." So thank you. I'm really excited today. So with my PowerPoint, where do I point? Make sure it's, oh, there it is. Okay, so I was given two themes. Don't know if, let me see. You guys are tall here because it was difficult for me to, I guess I'm the shortest person, but I was looking at two themes that you guys as the Rotarian are looking at in Gainesville. One of them is peace, conflict, and resolution, which you guys are working for this month. But also, I just want to do an introduction for the April focus, which is maternal and child health for your program. So as it was said in the introduction, I don't know if can I go to the next slide real quick? Yeah. Oh, I have to point here, sorry. We are working with technology. Okay. So I'm gonna share a little bit about my story. Maybe I could just say it next, so instead of collecting later. So I'm gonna share briefly about my story. I'm gonna talk about the peace and conflict resolution. And I'm gonna make it a big summary just to go into the event that happened in Sudan, now South Sudan, and where things are. And most importantly, I will conclude. That's our outline today. So I was born in Sudan along the Nile. My life was beautiful. I was about 6 or 7 years old. Our job, or my job, was clearly defined. Was simply to look after the cattle. And near future, you grew up and you married and you build your house next to your parents. And some of you who know the Nile, it's a beautiful place to be. Unfortunately, that dream didn't come true when the North and South Sudan broke into civil war in 1983. It's when the Sudan armed forces marching down to South Sudan. And in that war, not only has I lost my parents, my relatives, an estimated 2.5 million people have died. And the journey was very treacherous. When the attack happened, we were in the field looking after the cattle. When we were looking after the cattle, we see the burning of our villages being literally obliterated, destroyed by the enemy. But they didn't stop there. So I want to spend some time that God forbid today. I like the prayer that we have food, we have homes, but God forbid, as we are, if there's emergency and you see the entire village of Gainesville burning, what would be the next step you do? And I start walking, and my cousin and many boys who are so orphaned and who are very confused at young age didn't expect that you will actually leave your village. And so we hid for about a week. And as a child, you always have questions. You said, okay, you're gonna come back to your home. And it turned to 2 weeks, to 3 weeks, to 2 years, to 9 years, and later more years. So our walk, what made it difficult is the enemy was pursuing us. We didn't have clothing, we didn't have food, and some of us had to struggle to find the leaf of trees to eat. Some of us drank their own urine. Some of us are so tired to the point that said, when are we going to make it? They start telling us that we are going to a country called Ethiopia. We didn't know where it was. It took us about 3 months. And that walk was treacherous. It was difficult. The soldiers are coming after you with their AK-47. They are hovering over you with their helicopter. They are coming with their tank. They're basically coming with a full force. And that was the first journey. The next thing we learned later, a lot of relatives has been killed. Either the relative has been separated to go to Uganda, Kenya, or Ethiopia. So we stayed in Ethiopia for few years. And then after that, we were forced back to South Sudan, where about many lost boys died in this river called River Gila. About 2,000 died in one day. And it's because children didn't know how to swim. And we were kind of sandwiched between the armed forces in Ethiopian side and armed forces in South Sudan side. And basically you're in the middle where there's crocodiles also in the water, and a lot of people were eaten by crocodile or drowned, or they don't know how to swim. And because they fear for their life, they just kind of try to jump on top of each other. We got forced back to South Sudan border, and then later we moved to a country called Kenya. And again, the walk is always a vicious cycle. You are going without water, you don't have food, there's no UN to be found until later when you arrive in the United Nations refugee camp. And even though you arrive there, you're still having challenges of healthcare, you have challenges of food to eat. I remember those days to be given a little food rations for about a month, and that food ration literally finished in 7 days. What do? You just have to wait. You don't have hope. You don't have dignity. You don't even have freedom to even cultivate. You are just there temporarily as a refugee. So that was my life before I came to America. Let me go back to next. Okay. Okay. So what I just described to you is the North and the South Sudan Civil War that killed 2.5 million people. From 1983 to 2005, we have the peace deal. But then 2005 to 2013, South Sudan gained independence. I call it the peace era. So next. So, and then 2013, I was studying here at UF, and my wife was working in South Sudan. So with my organization, we were seeing a lot of patients. We just opened a new clinic, and we typically go back and forth. I would finish, in December or in January here at UF, and then I go back to take a medical mission team. So in 2013, when I went, my wife was there. I remember vividly, I arrived in December 6th and December 8th. There was a lot of political movement. We thought we got independent. And I didn't really think that the war could actually work out in the middle of Juba. I can see it like in rural South Sudan. Well, in December 14, 2013, hell broke loose. I was in the city called Bor. My wife was in Juba, and the fighting broke out in the middle of the capital city. And for a few days, communication was difficult. I have my American friend with me. She was in Juba and later evacuated to Rwanda. But the ordeal that I went through, it was like as if from the previous war, I was traumatized. The only difference this time between the first civil war I just told you about and 2013 was technology. People were calling, and my wife was giving updates on social media and saying, you got to call the State Department, and some of the complaint or issues going on could somehow find themselves to the White House, and you're hearing the President of the United States saying, you respect an American citizen, where every time I'm trying to board the plane, the enemy, which happened to be from a different tribe, is saying, you cannot go because of your tribe, and we're going to kill you. And I'm like showing them my American citizen, and it didn't matter. To the point that this country called America is the best country, and you will agree with me, we ever have. And I'm not saying this that we don't have problems, but it's still the best country we ever have, because it's a country that I come like me to be a nationalized citizen. It's a country that men and women in uniform would take bullet for you. And I was so amazed when my life and other lost boy life was in danger. So finally, we reached out to the Pentagon, to where the military was able to send the U.S. Marine. Actually, it was Osprey for some of you who are in military background. They came from Djibouti and tried to rescue us. And unfortunately, before they rescued us, they came under heavy fighting. And 2 to 3 Americans were injured. Thank God it was not a situation like Black Hawk Down, but they ended up landing in Entebbe. The problem is I was still stuck there. Fast forward through negotiation and through our men and women in uniform, I ended up getting evacuated and the Lost Boy get evacuated. And think about this. I want you to think about this. I was just naturalized citizen. You can see everybody got their own interests, right? These men and women could say, it's just Jacob. He's not really born here. He's not American. I'm telling you, that's what I miss. That's the American I know. You come here, and that's what makes us an American, is the accommodation, the diversity, the inclusivity. And those are the things that I think we can still have them back. Those days that here I am, given opportunity. So I got rescued and later came to the US. And then I made it to that was in New York Times, the front line. Like, New York Times is great, but it's not great when you're being on a New York Times for the bad stuff. It would be good for the good stuff. But that's when they say Sudan Lost Boys get caught in the country's violence once again. But one thing I appreciate, one of the mission of Rotarian is you help out. I remember your story of starting with health and polio. When I came to this country, I could easily say, you know what, forget it, my life is at risk. But that's what we do as humanity. That's what we do as humanitarian agency. So I continue to provide health services through this difficult time. Even now, we are providing one of the health services in an internal displaced camp to over 96,000 people. And because this country is still back in war. You can go next. So fast forward from that, civil war broke out between the vice president and the former vice president. We call it turned rebel. Basically, they have something called revitalized transitional government of national unity. And they divided. I guess this is what I call peace and resolution, but sometimes when you have peace and resolution, it's not the best. Look at this formula. It's not the best way to do it. It looked like for me is let's loot the country together because it's all about percentage and who can have the cake. But basically, the peace agreement, if means silence of the guns, and this war, over 400,000 people have died from 2013 to now. But it's always unfortunate, right? When you talk about peace and resolution, you have these actors, we call them warlords, who hold the gun. So if you don't listen to what they have to say, you're not going to have peace. And forget about reconciliation. So 55% of the government is given to what they call SPLM-IG, Sudan People Liberation Movement, in the government. That's which is led by President Kiir. 35% belong to SPLM-IO, which is first vice president Riek Machar, and 10% belong to what they call former detainees and other party. But here's the interesting thing, and you have 5 vice presidents. I never see a country like that. But again, when you talk about peace and resolution, it looked like it, at least right now, there's a brief period of silence the gun. That's what I'm interested in. And all South Sudanese and the downtrodden and the vulnerable people really care about that. We have a saying in Africa that when the elephant fights, the grass suffered. And in this case, the people of South Sudan are the grass, and unfortunately, they get the burn of fighting. But so this is the best we can do to accommodate them so that there's no more women being raped, there's no more fighting. We don't know how long it will hold, but this is the best peace we have so far. And I hope if they just can loot the country without raping women, without killing children, it would be great. But at the same time, they are committing these crazy, unacceptable atrocities. At the same time, they are misusing the fund. But hey, peace and resolution come at different costs. So next. I want to briefly talk about maternal mortality rate. In South Sudan, the maternal mortality rate is the worst in the whole world. A few years ago, it was 2,050 per 100,000 that died in South Sudan. The new data is telling us now, think about this. Some of you are doctors, 789 deaths per 100,000 live birth. It's supposed to be reduced, but that's still the highest. Think about even in the United States, how much I'm grateful for my wife to be here to have an access to better health services. I remember my last son, it was scary. The baby didn't come out naturally, she bleed. And the concern is when you have post hemorrhage, you women knows when you have hemorrhage, it's so difficult to stop the bleeding, and that led to premature death, and it put the wife and the children in danger. It's the worst in the whole world, and that's what we are trying to address in South Sudan. When you talk about deliveries attended by skilled attendant, less than 20%. That means a need education. We don't have enough nurses and people that could attend the women birth. It's very, very low. When we talk about infant mortality rate, it's almost 63 per 1,000 live birth, which is among the children that are under the age of 1. Under 5 mortality rate is 96 deaths per 1,000 lives. These numbers are staggering. These numbers are too high, and this is what we're trying to improve. Mother who attend for antenatal care, for visit, it's only 9%. So that means like they are not coming, and most women give birth at home without a skilled birth attendant. So this is one of the focus that we are trying to improve as an organization. Next. So there is an extreme need to improve maternal and child health in South Sudan. In our clinic, we focus on that in Mar, Jonglei State. And I was telling you right now, there's a big disaster. 80% of the whole country has been destroyed by flooding. About 8 million out of 12 million need humanitarian assistance. That's 3/4 of the country. And so that's why we ended up training midwife. I remember we took one of the OBGYN doctor from UF in the last March before pre-COVID. We went there, and there were the midwife were men, and you know, culturally, women did not show up. So we start training midwife as women, and we are seeing more women trusting other women to come through, and they are the one that now facilitating in the mobile clinics that we have set up, that we are taking care of 96,000, or in our clinic, it's a huge need of midwife. Next. So here's my conclusion, and this conclusion is what I call the principle that I developed in my life experience, and I'm briefly going to tell you. One of the principles I said is, run for your life, don't stop running. When you are in fear, don't look back. It's just keep going. Keep going. Look after others. Allow others to look after you. The reason I say this, I grew up as an orphan. And you know, it's so difficult. I used to say I have all my mothers and my fathers. And so sometimes look after others, it's easy to do, but you got to allow people to help you. And this is really applicable to COVID-19. We don't check on one another. And I was so happy when I hearing the announcement, you are looking after others. When I hear that you're going to Eastside Gainesville, it's beyond being individualistic interest. And look after others, it's a calling that we care. Every time now and then, I have friends that because of COVID, they're so depressed. And if I don't call them, they will never hear a human being voice. And that is important. Another one is life is tough, find a way to survive, but keep your integrity. This is very important. Integrity in every situation, even though it means do the best you can. We know it's hard, but keep your integrity. Integrity is very important. And take advantage of opportunities to rise above. Great things take time to happen. I remember, I don't have patience sometimes, but being here in 18 years, I barely speak English. And then after 18 years, I was able to obtain my PhD at University of Florida. It took me like literally 15 years that I've been in America, nothing but school. And anything you want to do, it will take time. Next one. Another principle is learn, 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 and never stop learning. Just COVID-19 has taught us very well. My wife a few years ago said, oh yeah, I want to be instructional designer. I'm like, what does that mean? And now because of COVID-19 and everything, we are all of a sudden we are expert in Zoom and everything. I'm pretty sure we are. Expect opposition, accept it. The reality is the way you plan things could be a different direction. Be resilient in it, adapt. You know, I didn't know I was gonna leave my home. I didn't know I was gonna be a refugee for life, but hey, it's the reality. Relationships are the key to success and moving forward. You gotta build that relationship. Look like you guys are doing a wonderful job. Have a goal and don't lose your vision. Struggle forward, succeed. You gotta know that your passion. And when I came here, if you would told me a Lost Boy would have a PhD, a Lost Boy would have a co-founder, SSA CEO, an organization that is providing health services in Africa, I would say you are pretty much crazy. But I didn't lose goal. So continue. Next, yeah. So when I think of peace and reconciliation, beside what I just told you, I like to always be blunt, and I can tell you, I'm always proud as an American. Peace and reconciliation come in a small way. To me, for example, I have a lot of my friends who are Muslim. The people who have destroyed and killed 2.5 million, including my relative, were Muslim in Sudan. Now, does that mean I have to go and be upset at every single Muslim I could see? That has to start within me to forgive and not be so much prejudiced. And it's not easy to do when you are the one get hurt. So when I think peace and reconciliation, people always ask me, why are you so happy? I said, I love what Nelson Mandela actually said. Say, there is no time to be bitter. He was jailed for so many years. There's no time to be bitter because you have to choose either to be bitter forever or move on forward. And this speaks to the reality we're in. This is a country that I admire and everybody admire. This is a country that I never thought of what I have seen in Washington on January 6th would ever happen here. And it gave me a different anxiety because I'm like, wow, where else would I run? I've been running for most of my life from such an act. I've been running all my life, but seeing America in that, I'm like, wow. So that happened, but we need peace and reconciliation no matter what. We need dialogue. What I find sometimes, I share my story across America, is somehow we Americans has moved away from dialoguing, hearing other people's perspective. Mine may not be the best, but hear me out, okay? Just disagree with me peacefully, and we don't have to be on each other people's throats. So when I say my life as a lost boy gave me the experience and drive to help displaced people around the world, I do that here and over there. It's not just the people around the world. It's also people here in America. We need to encourage one another. With that being said, I don't know how we're doing on time, but I like to leave a few minutes for a few questions. What time look like? Oh, good. You see, my wife, I get a brownie point because I was shut up. So I like that. I don't want to, I'm not one of those speakers, I want more questions. So who has the first question?
All right, so question in the room, Tom, beautiful, thank you, Mike, thank you for the question. And then Tom, can you see the chat?
I have the chat and I have a mic. So is Don. Raise your hand, folks, if you have a question for Jacob, please. And if you're online, we're monitoring the chat. We have one from Scott Winsler online before we go up front. Don will move that way first, but this one's from Scott Winsler. What experiences of dialogue did the Sudan experience that might be, and someone's moving the screen right in front of me. Give me 1 second. We have a remote operator too, and it just blocked my chat. What experiences of dialogue did Sudan experience that might be instructive to us in this country?
Well, good question. So I will go back a little. History was 1970. We call it as 1972 Addis Ababa Agreement. It was briefly celebrated, but it fall apart. And I think what always has to start is a genuine repentance. Okay, when any conflict, when people just say, "Oh, I'm sorry," but then this person, it's not really genuine. But I think the good example would be the Rwanda approach. The Rwanda, you may remember the Rwanda genocide, where even this is the real challenge now in South Sudan. What typically happen is like you fight, and then people say, okay, you have the gun, you get this percentage, like the percentage you see. But what is missing is the genuine population, people voice. The person who is willing to give is a person that is hurt. And until we get to the people to say, I'm very, very sorry, that doesn't work. And I think it worked from 2005 to 1983 to 2005, because it was genuinely facilitated by the politician, the political will to change the course of action. And so I think it comes down to individual choice. And even the politician, you cannot serve two masters. In one hand, you cannot have gun. In another hand, you said peace. It's one or other. But at some point, no matter how many times you're going to fight, we see in South Sudan, you're going to still going to come to the table and have compromise. You will never. Oh, you want to? Okay, good. This is why
So something they've been working on in South Sudan since the last fighting incident has been somewhat of a peace dialogue, where they've been going from state to state, and they kind of have, like, we would have town halls meetings here. They would do that locally within each state and some of the different cities. It's taken about a year to gather that process, but it's to help gather the information from the community on what types of issues that they have, as well as some of the input for the Constitution being reformed or recreated. And that's something that they're doing currently in South Sudan.
And to add that, that has to be done freely out of politicians, because what we also have seen is different parties going on the grassroots and instructed their own interests. When you have that, it's not going to happen. But when they're genuine, this is the people talking. So you're right. Next question.
Jacob, thank you for your inspiring story and overcoming a lot of adversity in your life. So I'm curious how you came to the States, and also you said 80% of the country has been flooded this year.
So how I came to the state, it's an interesting process. In 1998, while I was in a refugee camp, they said, "You're coming to America." First of all, I had no idea where America was. It's a lengthy process. You get interviewed. You have the lawyer to come from the State Department, and you tell your story like you are. I barely read and write. I remember my own cousin wrote my story. And then a few years later, guess what? The same story that you wrote, you'll be tested on. So it was just by God's grace, to be honest. It was very subjective how people come. And then you have to pass medical tests, medical screening. And then if you are what they call an unaccompanied minor or above 18, if you're 18 and above, you come to America, 3 months, you got to find a job, pay back Uncle Sam for the airfare ticket that you just took. I was kind of fortunate. I was under the age of 18. I was 15. So part of the problem is you get accepted to come by the State Department, and you have a resettlement agency, But then sometimes you don't have home. I have to wait for 6 months praying hard. God, like, give me somebody to accept me. And by God grace, this awesome mom now, Jane White from Michigan, accepted me and my cousin, said, I got a home for you. It was so exciting. I remember April 13, 2001. So you have to get on the plane in Kakuma refugee camp, is northern Kenya, to Nairobi, to Amsterdam, to New York, to Chicago, to Lansing, Michigan. Then I remember we drove to our small town. So it's a lengthy process, but that's how we came. Your second part was flooding. It's been really devastating. They are not prepared. And because the Nile overflowed in Jinja, which is Uganda, and there's no warning, like the entire 80% of the country, half of it, it's destroyed. And this is the emergency on top of emergency, such as health services. And in this camp that we are responding with challenges, we were a small organization in America. Now we have to expand to 96,000, where we used to take care of 16,000. And because COVID-19 and because of the challenges and because of the conflict, it's very sad. People are devastated because there's no strong institution to support. And the entire country depend on UN aid. And what happened when everybody's budget is being cut, and that's what is happening. People are being hurt.
Our next question comes from Dink Henderson via chat. Can you describe the motivation for the Civil War? Was it primary religion, selfish power for tribes, or fighting for scarce resources?
The later one, the scarce resources would be the best one. It's multiple things, okay? The North and the South, the fighting has been categorized as religion, agriculture, economic. It really come down to economic because 80% of the oil is in South Sudan. So, and it was discovered by Chevron in 1979. So the oil is in South Sudan and the technology, everything in North Sudan. So I would say it's both. It's agriculture, technology, it's scarce resources. Even now in South Sudan, I think it's more, they call it tribal war and all this, but it's really come down who can have an access to the cake, to the coffin, to the resources of the country. And then you add greed, and it comes down to greed and resources. Yeah.
Doctor, thank you so much, the
Thank you.
two of you, for your incredibly distinctive, unique, and powerful story. I mean, what I keep on hearing is persistence and hope. No matter what, you don't give up. You keep moving forward. And your story represents one more chapter in this country. Hundreds of years of people coming here to survive and then to thrive themselves and with their families. And recognizing that is something that all Americans should witness, experience, and appreciate fully, because it represents the very essence of what's good about this country. I like what you said about diversity, because the diversity is what makes this country thrive. And what you bring here, the gifts you bring here, you and your wife, are really impressive. My one question for you is, first of all, what did you eat in the jungle? A lot of snake, huh? And secondarily, I was going to ask you, did they compel you at any point to become a soldier yourself?
Okay.
And if so, what was that like?
Yeah. Thank you, Mike, for the good comment. And I always brag about America. They think that I'm being bribed, but no, this is the best country we ever lived. So thank you for that. So what we did eat is we survive on the leaf of the trees that we have. Sometimes the animal that we may kill, and more often, a lot of people is because lack of deficiency of vitamin D, it ended up eating mud, and you basically survive in between with basically nothing until you reach the refugee camp. Is when you have the little food that cannot last that long. So that's what we eat. Your last question was, remind me again? Yeah. I am so grateful. Like, they never forced me personally, but I have seen a lot of kids become child soldier.
Last question, Don,
Okay.
from someone there in the crowd. Name and question, please.
Hey, Jacob, this is Eric Spivey. I have a question. Give us a plug about what you do now and about the not-for-profit, your company, and how we might be able to participate in what you're doing.
Thank you. I went to Hopkins after UF to do my postdoc there, but this passion of helping people of South Sudan, I am full-time with the organization, make sure we have the resources that are needed. I have my card here. I think the contact person information, if you can put it back there, those are my contact information. And I just want to thank you all, President Matthew, and even people who are here already knows about my organization. When you talk about support, I know very well. And sorry to call you out, my good friend, Tony Barr has been tremendously, and many of you, I know others, has been really involved in helping, especially critically needed with 80% of the people affected. So I have my card here. I will be around if anybody would like to talk to us and my wife briefly. And I know this is the first, okay, Tony. Yeah, so in 2008, we mobilized the resources and we built about 8 room of a primary healthcare center in Jonglei state. It's not affected by flooding because of the way we build it. And that is the clinic now we are supporting, and now we are now responding to 96,000 people. And this is the 2 location now. We are seeing extremely large number due to flooding, so we are using medication, essential drugs, fishing nets, like non-food items, because this is a survival mode. So this is a clinic that all these years I came to this country and I was inspired by the fact that we have access to healthcare at any time. Whether I pay for it or not, I could check myself into Chance Hospital. And this is where needed people who need access to health services come here. So we actually build it up from the bottom, and it's still stayed there. And our goal is to really bringing health and hope to where it is lost across South Sudan. It's not just only that location or 2 locations, it's this 80% that we want to help. So thank you, President Matthew, and I will be around, and I really appreciate everyone.
Yes, a nice round of applause for Jacob Atem and his wife, who has joined us here today.
So Jacob and Linda, both, thank you so much for being here today, and what a great word. Before you sat down, Jacob, I did want to share with you a small token of our appreciation. This year's theme, Rotary opens opportunities, and I think you know a thing or two about opportunities, and we appreciate the word. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. What a great message. I mean, what a life experience. And not only a life experience and challenges maybe that we can never think of or imagine or comprehend in dealing with, but then also be able to apply that to things that we are experiencing today. So I really appreciate that. And having you both here today means a lot. Thank you so much. Before we go, there was another gentleman that knew a thing or two about peace. And in the early days of Rotary, and he quoted as saying, "It is easier to interest men in war than in peace. It therefore requires more moral courage to talk peace than war." Paul Harris. Have a great week, fellow Rotarians.